والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
Surah Al-Asr. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Merciful. By the time, surely man is lost, except those who believe and do good works, and those who exhort one another with truth, and those who exhort one another to be patient.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. The following tape includes questions that were asked of Bilal Phillips and other Muslims participating in the Saudi Cultural Information Exchange in the Khobar district of Saudi Arabia. The questions are being asked by American soldiers who participated in the Desert Shield, Desert Storm operation. The questions were asked in May 1991.
Assalamu alaikum, which is the Islamic greeting, peace be on you. And before I say anything about myself, I'd like to welcome you all here in the country and hope that your stay, is beneficial, that you come out of here, having gained some kind of new concepts about this part of the world and these type of people. And we hope that, this would be a basis for further friendships between Americans and peoples from this part of the world. Myself, I'm originally from Jamaica, the West Indies. I was born there. And my parents migrated to Canada when I was quite small. I grew up in Canada and went to college in Canada. And back in about 1972, I accepted it. And after trying to get as much knowledge as I could about Islam in Canada, I realized it was necessary for me to come over to this part of the world to try to get to the sources where one may learn Arabic, because as I'm sure you've probably heard or will hear, the basic book of revelation in Islam, known as the Quran, is in Arabic. It's been translated into English and to other languages, but whenever you find one, they have copies here, you will see that the Arabic and English is there. Why? Because the revelation as it came in Arabic has been preserved. So a person, in the course of translation, something of the original is lost, because it's impossible to translate from one language really to another in the full sense. So I had a desire to want to read that revelation as it was revealed, and to understand the basic principles of the religion, from the original sources. So I came over to, I got a full scholarship also, like Abdul Salam, and to the University of Medina. I did a course in Arabic and did my BA from there in Islamic Studies. Also, I did an MA from University in Riyadh in Islamic Theology, and I'm now presently completing a degree in Islamic Theology from the University of Wales in Britain. And that's my background. I'm here on invitation of Abdul Salam to share in the activities here of trying to clarify for you all something of the culture and the thoughts of the people here, because I've been here for close to 16 years, so I do have a basic understanding of what's happening, and I hope that I'll be able to share something with you this evening. And I believe, Abdul Salam, after that we just go into a question answer type situation. Any questions you'd like to ask, I'll try to answer what I can.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Bilal. Basically, we try to accommodate members of our audience as per your request. If you wish, Jimmy Swaggart, preaching, Reverend Ike, or whatever else, what other preacher that you're familiar with, we can try to do that. Okay, that's not our specialty, by the way, nor is that the reason why we're here. However, if you wish to ask questions and to possibly receive answers as to what Saudi Arabian society represents and the role that Islam impacts within this society, within this country, you guys might owe it to yourself to become a little more familiar with that. Okay? This might be an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. Ask questions from the sources and try to obtain understanding, try to obtain some sort of consciousness. It'll be not only a disgrace, but it'll be also an embarrassment for you guys to have been members of one of the most sophisticated and comprehensive military maneuvers in U.S. history, as well as in international warfare, and you come to a country such as Saudi Arabia, and then you leave, you go back home as duds. I don't mean studs, I mean studs. Try to learn something, guys. Name, rank, serial number, and where you're from.
My name is Specialist Miles, I'm from Florida. And I'm Fort Lauderdale, Florida. When all this started, and the Saudi Arabian people saw this mass influence of military vehicles and tanks and all these weapons of destruction, what was the local thoughts about that? Did they like it, or did they resent it, or were they more for it or against it?
Actually, the reactions were mixed. Many people were shocked, resentful, and this is based on the history of the American military in various parts of the Third World, where the military has set up base in Manila, used Bangkok for R&R, Hong Kong, Singapore. These places where American military presence has been, have become, to a large degree, for people who are particular about morals and, these type of things, corrupted. So they feared that this could happen to the society. And naturally, that made them to some degree resentful. There are other people who were more aware of the military implication of Saddam's entry into Kuwait, who looked at American presence here as being, a saving type situation. It was something beneficial, as long as the presence, was not prolonged. So you found reactions of people, between the two.
All right. Questions, answers, comments? Yeah. Name, rank, and where you from?
Specialist Carter from Fort Worth, Texas, and I have one question for you.
What do you do?
So payments or something. As I said before, I'm a chemical operations specialist.
Yes, man, yeah.
My question might seem a little bit personal, but I understand that you're from Canada, from the western part of the world, and I'd like to know what are your feelings between, what do you like or dislike about the Eastern world compared to the Western world and vice versa?
I would say that from the point of view of administration, the people in this part, are not that sophisticated. So it means that a lot of things that could get done in a very short space of time takes a long time. That's probably the most obvious difference. There are other observations that, people see, like in terms of driving habits, etc., and streets and stuff and things. But what I found is that by understanding the reasons, why administration is in the state that it is, why our drivers as reckless as they are, from the point of view of the society having reached a state technologically within a very short space of time. You're taking people who were riding camels yesterday and you put them into cars today. And don't be surprised if they want to do things with the cars that they did with the camels. It's understandable. It's understandable. And if you look at it from that point of view, then you can appreciate it. That it takes time. In earlier times, people would get licenses without having really gone through qualifications. Now, they have a system where, people are going through testing, and so the quality of driving is improving. The administration functioning is also improving. So by understanding, one can be patient and handle these type of things. But probably for me, the most profound difference that I can really appreciate is the peace that exists in this society. In spite of the war, the situation that has occurred here, I mean, within a particular space of time, there is a peace in this society that I think you will seldom find in societies around the world, I mean, especially in the West. Crime is just virtually non-existent. I don't feel worried about my son and my daughter if they go out to visit friends and they come back at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not worried, in any way in that sense. My wife doesn't, have any kind of fears if she goes to visit a friend, late at night. There's no worries about time and personal safety. And it's just a beautiful feeling to just be able to, live without the pressure and the worry of crime on the scale that it exists in the West.
What are some of the things here that you have found? I mean, you've been here for a long time. You have not just arrived last month or last week. I mean, you've been here for a number of years. You speak the language fluently. You know many people know you, and so forth and so on. Can you possibly give to us some sort of insight as to what makes these people tick? Why do Saudis differ from, let's say, the Kuwaitis, if they differ? Why do the Saudis differ from, let's say, the Lebanese, the Palestinians? What are some of the cultural norms that is inherent in this part of the society that we find so different back home in the United States, Canada, Europe, etc.?
I would say that probably the fact that Islamic law is the law of the land. This makes a profound, difference between the peoples of this area and peoples of other Arab and neighboring countries who may have similar ethnic roots and may have similar religious convictions. However, the law of Islam has not been implemented in those other countries, whereas it has been here. Because the peace that I spoke of, that safety, that sense of safety and lack of worry over crime is a direct result of the implementation of Islamic law, which I'm sure you've heard of, from a point of view of it being, like in the West they like to refer to it as being medieval, They chop off people's hands, when they steal, and they chop off their heads when they kill, and so it's usually, this is how it's presented, and of course people tend in the West to be, wow, taking off a hand, chopping off a head, but it's not something which is happening like on a daily basis. It happens on occasion, but it has a deterrent factor to it that causes criminals or those who have criminal intent to harbor, trying to express these intentions for fear of being caught and the full weight of the law falling on them. Women, if a woman is raped in this country, the law is that the rapist receives the death sentence. In America, I just read in the paper, well, the death sentence, he is executed. His head is chopped off. I mean, according to Islamic law, it doesn't have to be your head cut off. It could be a bullet in the back of your head, or it could, whatever, but you're executed quickly and relatively painlessly. But the point is that the law is very swift also. It's not a question that you're going to sit in jail for 10, 15 years and, and you have lawyers who are trying to protect your interests. And no, if you are caught with the goods, then, in a very short space of time, maybe a matter of weeks or a month, the law reaches its end of its investigation and the law is applied. It is sure and it is swift. So the criminal element to a large degree is eliminated. It doesn't have an opportunity to function as it would say in the West. I read in the papers not too long ago that the reported rapes in America, had crossed the 100,000 mark in America. 100,000 rapes that were reported, and we know per year. And we know that those that are not reported are going to be many more. So much so that the people who are, announcing and talking about it are saying it's reached epidemic proportions. Because such crimes, are treated lightly in the society. Human life is valued, individual human life is valued over the health of the society as a whole. Whereas in this society, individual human life is not given value over the whole society. If that individual human life becomes a danger to the well-being of the society as a whole, then that human life is eliminated. And that simple principle in Islamic law has produced, that peace that I refer to that exists within the society, and separates it from other neighboring countries that have common ethnic backgrounds and even Muslim peoples.
Can we get some questions or some comments, some observations regarding what my brother Bilal has said? Maybe we can better understand what's happening at Kipasa. Name, rank, the number, where you from?
Okay, my name is Lieutenant Fulton. I'm from Fort Riley, Kansas. I work at HHCMNC as a maintenance material officer. Anyway, I'm curious, or I was hoping that you can help me understand the role that females play here and the dress code, i.e.
Well, the role of a woman in this society is primarily that of a mother. The society doesn't say that the woman has to be only a mother and she cannot be anything else but a mother. But that particular role is given precedence and encouraged, strongly encouraged. A woman is encouraged to be educated also, because they do believe that, education of a woman is education of a generation, a family, a society. Whereas education of a man is really education of an individual. Because an educated woman will be able to provide for her children, what an uneducated woman will not be able. So there is an encouragement for education. However, that education is what we could call separate but equal. There are girls' schools, girls' universities, and boys' schools and boys' universities. This existed in the West at one point in time, and then they decided that it was not necessary, it was not progressive, or whatever, and it was removed. Here, it is maintained. There's a separation between males and females on a general scale in the society, and the dress code also represents an aspect of that separation, in the sense that it requires that a man who is dealing with a woman deal with her on the basis of her intelligence, not on the basis of her body. If you want to sell a car in America, the best way is to put, we know who on top of the car, half naked. You want to sell a razor blade, then you have to have a woman somehow there when the man is shaving, either clutching onto his hand or, something like that. The whole way in which any product is sold in America, in the West, it is sold through using the female as an object, a sexual object. This society is opposed to that fundamentally. That the woman is not a sexual object. The role of sex is within marriage. The role of sex is within marriage. There's no sex outside of marriage. And that's why we said the person who commits rape, he's executed. A person who commits fornication is lashed, 100 lashes, publicly. A man or woman who commits adultery is stoned to death. This is the law. So this law can only function reasonably in a society where things which would invite breaking the law exist. So a woman is covered, except what is particularly required is covered except for her face and hands. She wears loose clothing which doesn't accentuate or promote her figure. And even the male are encouraged to wear loose clothing. This is why the common dress is the long flowing like robes that the men wear also. They're not allowed to wear the kind of, skin tight clothing which will expose their private parts. This is also prohibited for males. So it is not just something on the females and nothing on the males. It's for the protection of the society as a whole. Because the goal of the society is a chaste society. It doesn't deny the role of sex, but it says that sex should be within a particular context, which is controlled so that it doesn't harm the society. We don't have illegitimate children. We don't have the spread of diseases like AIDS and herpes, etc., etc. Because this happens when there is what they call promiscuity in the society, where anybody does it with anybody anyhow. So this is the goal behind it. It's not to hide the woman from the society and prevent her from playing a role within the society. No. It says, no, she has a role. She's encouraged into medicine, into teaching, into various fields which help to develop and build the society. But at the same time, she, because of the fact that we recognize that women, I know women's lib don't like to hear this, but we recognize, or Islam recognizes, that women are weaker than men physically. Physically, they're weaker than men. The top high school sprinter, is as fast as the top female Olympian. The differences between males and females physically, generally, is a reality. And that's why, when they're talking about 100,000 rapes in America last year, they're not talking about women raping men. This is the reality. So, the society tries to protect the weaker members of the society. Children, systems are set up to try to protect them and also to protect women also. And this dress code is part of that system for protecting the woman as well as protecting the society. And the dress code for the men also is there to protect the society from the harm which can come from excessive promotion of the sexual aspects of the human being.
Lieutenant Fulton, if I may ask you, what observations do you have? What prejudices did you come to Saudi Arabia with before you came here, insofar as your orientation back home prior to arriving in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? Insofar as the women's issue is concerned, how did you see it then, and how do you see it now, especially after my brother Bilal, Ameenah Phillips, has somewhat touched upon some of the highlights or points of this women's phenomenon? Please.
Well, before I came out here, I was told that women were treated as second-class citizens. And I've been out in the sand, in the desert, and I just came in here in this location, so I really haven't had a chance to come in contact. I don't know. You just clarified a little. Well,
and whatever is, if there's some other points that you want to get more clarity on, go ahead.
Is it true second-class citizens, females?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a second-class citizen.
For example, walking behind the men.
No, Islam does not require a woman to walk behind a man.
No, babe.
Go ahead.
Okay, on the buses, sitting in the back.
Okay, sitting in the back of the buses. What you have to understand is when buses first were brought in the kingdom, when they first started with buses, they put the women in the front of the buses. But as I said, in Islam, they tried to maintain this segregation between males and females, right? So they had a separate section for women in the front of the bus, and the men were behind them. But they found that, of course, when the women were put in the front, then the men all behind them, they were oogling the women. So they felt it was better to avoid this oogling to put the women in the back of the bus. So it was just for convenience sake and protection of the women. And we know in Bangkok, just recently, the country has decided to have separate buses for men and separate buses for women because the women were under constant attack. And I'm sure any woman who has to go to work in rush hour in any of the major cities where there are crowded buses, they know what they go through. So to try to protect them, a separate section was given to them on the bus. And I said initially it was in the beginning, and then in the front of the bus, later they moved it to the back, and this was for the protection of women. It has nothing to do with them being second class.
I heard females couldn't go into some stores. Is that true?
No, there are no stores that I know of that females can't go into, but there are stores that males can't go into, that only females can go into. The only stores I could say that I know of directly that females are not allowed into are video stores. Okay, but there are many more stores that females can go into that males can't go into. There are a number you will find. These are stores in different parts of the city that are run solely by females and selling, the type of clothes that private clothes, underwear, etc., for females, and the men are not allowed to go in there.
Okay, being a female officer, I'm going to ask you a question now. I tell a lot of my subordinates what to do, what needs to be done. How do they, or y'all, take orders from females?
Well,
how well do you take orders from females?
Well, if a female is put in a position of authority, then that authority is recognized within the society, But what you find is that the institutions where females are in, generally speaking, these institutions are separate institutions. So you don't really have much of the situation where females are ordering males to do certain things. Not very much. In the medical field, in a hospital where you have males and females in a closer relationship, you will find that, where a female may be a specialist in a particular field, and then if she tells a male to go and do this, or a male nurse to go and do that, he just has to go and do it, like anybody else. But I'm just saying that that's not the norm. The norm in the society is that there are banks set aside for females that are run by females. Everything in it is done by females. There are male banks that the females can go into also. They're not prevented from going there. But the female banks, men are not allowed to go in. You have, as I said, the universities. You have female universities that are run from top to bottom by females.
Lieutenant, I was just wondering if, I know you have other concerns, okay? I know you have other preoccupations. I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that you've experienced certain changes or certain themes here in your military capacity as a military officer. I'm assuming that because this has been the feedback from many other female officers from major on down to other NCOs. Can you maybe share with us some of those experiences or concerns?
Yeah, I've been out of this. I've been in Kuwait, Iraq, and I have not come in contact with the Iraqis, Kuwait, or Saudi Arabia until here.
Well, what about a runaway veteran or something?
Well, matter of fact, I was running the other day. Let me see. I was running the other day. Matter of fact, it was yesterday, and I'm in Kuwait, Iraq, and I have not been in contact with the Iraqis, Kuwait, or Saudi Arabia until here.
Well, what about a runaway veteran or something?
Well, matter of fact, I was running the other day. Let me see. I was running the other day. Matter of fact, it was yesterday, and I was told that Saudi Arabians don't look at females in the eye. Okay, they don't look at their eyes. Well, anyway, I was running, and one of the Saudis told me to stop, and he wanted to take a picture of me. And so I stopped and said, okay, you can take a picture of me. And then he told me, well, stop, come here, come here. And he was patting his face, and he wanted to kiss. And I said, no, and I started running really fast, and he put his hand in his pocket and pulled out a bunch of money. And he wanted me to come through. I guess he wanted me to kiss him, I don't know. I understand this is a different culture, and I respect this.
Well, let's say that, what your experience there is an aberration. It's not a norm.
Okay.
Obviously that individual was one with criminal intent. According to the law. I'm saying because the law exists, it doesn't mean that there are no criminals. It's law is being implemented, there's still people who are willing to go outside the law. And that man obviously was trying to go outside the law. He has watched some video films which have come from United States, which portray the average American woman, as, easy. You just got to pull out some money and she's, ready for you. This kind of, unfortunately, this is, the image that America has promoted of its women through these films. And so such individuals, having seen that, have felt that, if I produce some money, maybe she'll, come with me. So this is as I said, this is something which is, an aberration. It's not a norm. And I wouldn't want to judge the whole society by that particular experience.
Well, I just thought it was sharp because, all I know is what people told me about people here. And that was my first experience. Well, when I came forward, there were servers that were just there. Besides that was my only contact with them.
I'm sure if you reported that individual to any of the officers or they have even what they call the moral police here. And if you reported him, he'll be kited away faster than you could, blink your eye. So they have a moral police which operates within the major cities to prevent these type of things from occurring.
I'm talking for class Charles Bouchard from Germany with Syndicate Finance.
Like home, where are you from?
From Illinois.
Chicago?
Chicago, yeah.
You like that?
Yeah, far away. I'd like to know, in Saudi Arabia, are women allowed to vote? And if so, are they allowed to hold any kind of positions in government?
Well, the structure of the government is such that it has been ratified by the society as a whole. It doesn't go through an electoral process. So you could say the average citizen doesn't vote. There's no voting involved. What they have done instead is that each community, each area has a person who they look up to, who may be equivalent to a mayor or something like this. And this person who they look up to and trust to choose somebody who would represent them, they're the people who do the choosing. So it doesn't follow the democratic process as we understand it, like in the West. And as such, it's not an issue of women being allowed to vote or not allowed to vote because there's no voting per se for the masses as a whole. In terms of offices or positions, there are women who hold different positions within corporate structure. Within the government per se, generally speaking, I would say that the males are the ones who handle the positions in government. That is you could say the general status of government and male, female. I'd just like to add that there's a general attitude in the society towards family structure, in that the male in the family is looked at as the head of the family, and he takes the major responsibility in terms of decision making, etc. Not that women may not be involved in the decision making in the family, but the final word is like with the male. That's the way it is on a family level. And naturally, what you find is that the society as a whole reflects that. So the governmental positions, etc., these are done by males. I think it's a reflection of that general family pattern.
The question I have concerning family structure is how do a woman go about getting married?
Okay, as we said, that there is a separation in the society, girls going to girls' schools, boys going to boys' schools. So naturally, a boy is not going to be interested in a girl because he saw and had an opportunity to be around a girl. What tends to happen is that if a boy reaches a marriageable age, because we're only dealing in marriage, there's no girlfriend, a boyfriend, no engagement. No, it's just a question of marriage. If a man or young man reaches a marriageable age, he wants to get married, he informs his family, then his family starts to look for a suitable wife for him. that family may talk to their friends or other distant relatives, ask them, do you have any daughters? Or they may know, and they discuss amongst themselves. The mother especially plays a big role in this because she knows her son, knows his likes and dislikes, and she may discuss, with another mother who knows her daughter and knows her likes and dislikes. And, if they think amongst themselves that there is some compatibility there, that they would make a good match, then they will introduce the boy to the girl. They will sit down chaperones. I know this again sounds like, America back in the 1800s and before. But this is the principle here. The boy and girl, they meet, they sit down and discuss. So that is a question of them determining, on a mental level, are they compatible? Not a question of, being turned on and going through the whole process of et cetera, to determine, trying the goods before you buy it type of, approach. No, it maintains the chastity of the woman and the man by them sitting, discussing with the chaperone their own likes and dislikes. And of course it's going to limit what they can talk about. That way the possibility of game is reduced, where a man might, run a game on a woman, give her all kinds of stories, I'll do this and you're this, and, play on her sympathies and, get her emotionally worked up. She gets blinded to really what this guy is about. To prevent all that kind of thing, their meeting is a chaperone meeting where they get to generally understand each other. Of course, one wonders, well, in that case, what happens when they get married? Well, in America, where people have full opportunity to explore sexually each other before marriage, the rate of divorce is 50% plus. So obviously, this process of exploring, does not improve the quality of the marriage in any way, in that sense. When you look in this society, the rate of divorce is much, much less. Because people, when they marry, they're not comparing. When you've been married, when you've had so many relationships with women, and she's had so many relationships with men, when you two get together, there's a tendency for you to compare him with other people you've related with, and for him to compare you with other women he's related with. And of course, once these type of things happen, then it's very easy for problems to arise, and a person to say, well, I can find somebody better, or I like so and so better, or whatever. So the people, when they meet, when they marry, they're having sex for the first time. So this, generally speaking, does not tend to be, a basis for breakup of relationships.
That question now, Lieutenant, did we somewhat touch upon your concerns, your question of...
He answered my question, but also arose other questions. He mentioned the fact that divorce rate is relatively low here, so that stays in my mind that it does exist. However, what are the consequences of a woman getting a divorce? We might want to talk about that in relationship to the Americans. What are the consequences of the divorce, and if they do exist?
Well, in this society, the process of divorce is not a very difficult process. It's not the type of thing that happens, say, in the West, where you go into court and lawyers arguing and fighting over how the division of the monies and all this type of thing. This doesn't exist here. The process of divorce is fairly painless. There is no alimony. No alimony in the process of divorce. However, the maintenance of children is required. A man is responsible for his children, to look after those children. But because the fact that the family structures are strong, if a woman is divorced, she has family support behind her. She's not thrown out into the society now, stigmatized and on her own. She has family support. Remarriage can take place if she wishes. And, even though the divorce is rare, it's not that common as it would be, say, for example, in the West. People are not stigmatized by it, and people do remarry, after divorce, etc.
Was that touched upon? Okay, thank you. Many other nights I've been here, it was brought to everyone's attention that
Saudi Arabia has the most liberated females in the world. Check, check, check. Okay, my question is, first, again, I had a friend, between the Sultan, and he told me he had a number of wives. He's Saudi citizen, Lieutenant Sultan. Right, the guy was telling me about the other night. Okay, so if a man can have a number of wives, can a woman have a number of husbands? Okay, that's the first part of his question, and if there's the second part, we'll get back to it, Lieutenant. If a man can have more than one wife, if he can practice the sacred art of polygamy here in this society, can his wife also practice this not so sacred art of polygamy? What's happening with that? Brother Bilal?
Well, the case of a man having more than one wife is one in which he is required to look after the females, and the maximum number is 4, according to law, justly and equally wherever possible. So, I mean, it's not just like a free-for-all, like anybody can have as many wives as he wants, and he can do anything he wishes. There are laws and guidelines which govern the process of marriage within, according to Islamic law, and he has to stay within these guidelines. And these guidelines protect the rights of the women and men involved. In the case of a woman having more than one husband, this is prohibited according to the law. This law is not something new. From the Mosaic law, it's, in tradition, prophets who had more than one wife, according to Mosaic law, women were not allowed to have more than one husband. And the primary reason, I would say, is because family structure, wherein a child knows who his father is, can only be maintained if a man has more than one wife, and it cannot be if a woman has more than one husband. I think this is one of the primary, factors which are involved. Of course, there is another factor, that of population. If we look in America, we look in Russia, the major countries, the population of women is greater than the population of men. And the allowance for polygamy is to deal with that type of circumstance. Women live longer than men. Men, generally speaking, die in the battle. So, for these variety of factors, as well as even biological in terms of births, etc., the quantity of women, generally speaking, everywhere is greater than the quantity of men. So the allowance of polygamy is to help to alleviate that circumstance. Polyandry, wherein a woman has more than one husband, that would be defeating this principle of dealing with the demographics of the society, or the breakdown of men and women in society.
Does that somewhat touch upon your question? Oh yes. The next part of the question is, through the many nights I've been here, everyone, you've always spoke of the great liberation that the females have in this country, but I've never seen a female sit on the podium so we could ask her questions and get the other side of the story, the real deal, the real deal. And we want to do that, and really great. It would be great with the great freedom that they have. Then I feel that I could be able to ask and say, okay, what's the real deal then? The real deal is you have to ask the Lord, for understanding and insight as to why you can't see them. No, I don't necessarily want freedom, but I keep saying about the great freedom, and I want to know what's great about it. So, Brother Bilal, why is it that women here in this society are supposed to be some of the most liberated women on the face of this earth, second to none, the Muslim woman? Why is it that she is not only in total
obscurity in her dress, but also in her behavior. Why is it that G.I. Joe and G.I. Jane cannot see them? I mean, is she so equal? Is she so lucid? What does she have to lose? Why can't she not come here, okay, and talk to us directly as to what her feelings on various subject matters are? Lieutenant Creasy, he would like to know. What's happening?
Well, I would say that it is more a question of organization than a question of women not being allowed to be here. Generally speaking, it's very easy to arrange for women to come and talk to a group of women. Because of this same separation, maybe you didn't come in at the time when we were discussing the issue of separation of sexes within the society. These type of arrangements have taken place. Groups of female soldiers have been taken into homes and into halls where they have sat and discussed with local women, about the situation here and the situation for women. But generally speaking, women are not put in a situation where they are surrounded by a large, body of males. This is it's just a norm in this society. And Islam, as I said before, encourages that women deal with women, and men deal basically with men. If you go back to America, because of the fact that the American society is an open society, it would be quite easy for you to meet, if you went to an Islamic center, a Muslim woman and speak to her and ask her what does she think about Islam and so on and so forth. It would be much easier there in America. And of course, English is their language. The average Muslim woman here doesn't speak English. It would be much easier there in America than it would be here. So let me just add also that when we're talking about liberation doesn't mean that anybody can do anything. This is the point, Liberation, because once you're talking about that kind of liberation, you're talking about anarchy. Really, chaos in society. Freedom has its bounds. It has its bounds. And the man here is not free to go anywhere he wishes to go. There are places which are out of bounds to him. And any society, for it to develop in a healthy fashion, has to have certain checks and balances, guidelines to protect the society as a whole, where there will be places which are out of bounds.
So in the United States, I'm missing something here. We're not chaotic and out of control. Is that what you're saying? That because we allow the female to enter into dialogue, that we're out of control and we have a chaotic society?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in a country where, as was reported, I mentioned earlier, as was reported in the newspapers recently, the number of reported rapes was greater than 100,000 last year in America. You see, this liberated society has at the same time produced an epidemic of rape where the woman is under attack. The majority of the women in the society, wherever they interact, whether it's on the job or it's going in the buses or in the army, they did a study of women in the army, and the majority of them were saying they were being attacked.
U.S. Army, brother?
U.S. Army. So, if we don't have some checks and bounds, then we end up with a situation like that. It's harmful.
There are approximately over 250 million Americans. That is even less than 10%, less than 5% of what you're talking of. Also,
So what do you think? It doesn't matter?
Hold it. I'll let you say that. Let me finish. There are females who are presidents of universities. There are females who in the police department. There is a female general. Because of this situation, when you mean you take the females, all of them, because every country has some bad criminals, and you take those, but because less than a percentage, a minute portion of our population makes a few mistakes,
we take all our females and put them in the house and don't let them come out. And don't give them the choice to make decisions where how they want to run their lives and operate in our society. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I would say that the Islamic society, or this society, does not keep the women in their homes and deny them any function within the society. It doesn't do that, you know. So we're not saying that extreme. We're just saying that by segregation of sexes in the society as a whole, this protects the women from the abuses that tend to come from societies where there is no segregation, no checks and bounds for the protection of the society and protection of the women. This is what I'm saying. And when we talk about 100,000 reported rapes, we're not talking about the 5 or 6 times that number which are unreported. I mean, when the people who talked about this and reported these figures, they were crying about it. They were saying this has reached epidemic proportions in the society. I mean, this is not something that we can take lightly and say, well, it's only 2%. No, it is something devastating. And what we're saying is that, how do you deal with that? We're not saying that you deal with that by locking the women in the home. No. We're saying that the role of the women in the society and the men in the society, you know, has to come under some controls for the benefit of the society as a whole. And in this society here, where women are given the opportunity for education, they're given the opportunity for education. There are girls' schools, many girls' schools. There are women's universities. There are a number of them. There are businesses which are run totally by women. There are banks which are run totally by women. You have shops run totally by women. You have women play a major role within the society. But it is not, you know, on a mixed, free-for-all type basis. And they have found that as a result of that, this helps to protect the society from the kind of corruption which can occur, you know, and women tend to be the ones who suffer the most in these circumstances.
Yeah, before we go on the sentence, I just want to make a comment here. Guys, what we're saying here and what we're trying to say here is, number one, we are not here to preach to you guys, nor are we here to be preached to. If you want your women to burn their bras out in public, to burn their panties, that's all fine and good. If you want to expose your women, that is fine for you. But within the Islamic concept, okay, of that which is considered moral and that which is considered right and decent, it is unacceptable and it will not be tolerated. This is the Islamic perspective and position on that. Okay? So this is all we want to do, is just communicate. If you want to expose your women, put them on bazooka chewing gum and sell her, you know, her numbers, I mean 32, 38, that's all fine and good, do it. Okay? But I prefer to have my women not a nobody's bazooka, you know, commercial, Kellogg's, cornflakes, carton, and so forth and so on. You understand? This is what it's all about, okay? We're not here to preach or to be preached to. We're just trying to interchange information. You want to expose your women, your daughters, your wives, your female folks, fine and good. But here, in the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it will not be tolerated. It never has been, it is not now, and it will, inshallah, will never be. The Islamic position on that is very clear. Okay, so, por favor, okay, please try to understand that, and try to respect us for that. Okay, because we can go on and on and on. Okay, and, you know, if that's what you wish, well, fine and good. Expose your stuff, show it off, give it, you know, to the highest bidder, auction her off. I mean, that's cool. Sell her, I mean, you know, deep throat action, that's fine. But for us, our women, we don't play that, okay? Questions, observations, or comments? Yeah. Name I sit away from.
Sergeant John Morris, I'm from Rosewood, Dominica. Pertaining to the question about marriage, if a man wishes to get married a second time, or he wishes to take a wife a second time, does his family go through the same procedure? And if so, when he gets ready for his second wife or third or fourth, is it because he has, you know, used the other one as much as he wanted to, or he's not tired of her but bored with her? Is that the perception that
the gentleman, I guess one of the other majors can answer, is that the general idea, because I know it's not through the process you were talking about, the demographics of the society, that's why they take a second wife. It's good to have, but is that the reason in their head they're tired of the wife, or they're bored with the wife, but they're going to still keep her as a wife to take a second wife?
People may do it for a variety of reasons. Islam does not seek, or the law does not seek to determine the intent of the person, because that's something between him and God. What his intent is. If the intent is not an acceptable intent, then he has to answer as a sinner before God. If his intent is acceptable, then he is blessed by what he is doing. So at the time when he decides he wants to have a second wife, he is allowed to do so if he is capable of maintaining that wife. The society will not allow him if he is not. There are checks that are there to prevent him from doing so merely because he wishes to do so and he doesn't have the means to do so. And if he is going to, in this society, if he's going to choose a second wife, he doesn't just go around the society and find a wife and a second person and marry her and it's done. No. Again, the family is going to come into play, because he will have to go through the parents of that girl. So the parents will look into his situation. Is he capable of maintaining a family? And also, she will have to accept it. It's not just a question that the marriage is decided for her and she must marry that person. So the people who are involved understand what is involved in the second marriage.